thank you for coming. We really appreciate it. I know there's going to be still people coming in, so hope it's not going to be bothering you, and there's going to be people joining in, but quite a few people appeared quite late. So yeah, welcome. Thank you for coming. And in terms of the agenda, we'll start with the presentation from Anna Ninke from Springus, who's our guest tonight. Thank you very much for coming. She'll give a presentation about onboarding. Then we're going to have like a 30-minute break. After the break, we're going to have the discussion panel. During the break, you'll be able to propose and vote on your favorite topics for the panel. I'll talk about it later, so don't worry about it now. And yeah, and after that, we're going to have the discussion panel with Holacracy Practitioners. So enjoy the event, and please welcome stage Anne Ninke, who will talk about onboarding.
Wow, I even get a mic and everything. I hope this is going well, like technology and water. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you for Oscar for getting me here and inviting me. And thank you for Exol for hosting this here. I always like to start with everybody standing up. So if you could all stand up, please. I like to know what kind of audience I have. So I would like to know who of you is already working with Holacracy. Can I see some hands? Some people working with Holacracy? Yeah, okay. Can you sit down? Okay, so who has heard of Holacracy, but you're not working with it yet, but you know what it is? Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can sit down as well. Yeah, it's a good way to know like what the experience in the room is. So my name is Anne Ninke. I work for Springus. Oh, it's not on here yet. I work for Springus, and I'm going to be talking about hiring and onboarding within a holacratic organization. I think the slides will be shared with you, or they're up somewhere online. I'm looking for Oscar. Where are you? They're up somewhere, right? So you don't have to take pictures or, right? What he said. So you don't have to take pictures or make a lot of notes because you'll get them later. There's also a live stream. Where is the live stream? Where should I look at? Here. The camera's there. Hello, YouTube. So yeah, let's get started with this. First, I'd like to give a little bit of an introduction about Springist, because I don't know, does any one of you, have you heard of Springist? Do you know what we do? No. Springist is a comparison platform for educational courses. So everything is about learning. We offer a lot of learning products, and a lot of education providers, they can offer their learning products on Springist. So if you're looking for a course, something of education, an ebook, you can go to Springist, you can search for it, and you'll get a whole lot of results with different companies offering you different kinds of trainings. That's our public platform. Next to that, we also have our business platform. So a lot of big companies with more than 300 employees use Springist as their internal learning platform. So all of their internal company training is booked through Springist. That's also part of it. We have a lot of data about learning in the Netherlands because, well, a lot of people, they request information about courses. So we have a lot of insight on the average budget that people have in companies, average learning budget, the average amount they spend in certain topics. So we have a lot of data that we bring with that. We have over 5,000, I think over 6,000 education providers on the platform now, and we keep growing. It's like a nice growing line, and we just continue growing. And why we do all of that is because our overall purpose of Springist is helping people reach their full potential through learning and vitality. That is our why. That is the purpose of our entire company, and that's why we do that. How do we do that? We do that with all these people. This is the team when we were on a workation in Spain last year. We're with about, I think, 50 people now, spread over about 200 or 300 roles. And this is what our company looks like. So rules.springus.com is public, so you can type that in at home as well, and you can look at all the different rules that we have. So this is what our organization looks like. You all know like the typical like organizational organogram, or how do you call it, organizational chart, the rake with all the traditional hierarchical structure. With Holacracy, you don't really have that anymore. It's more like a cell structure. So this is what our company looks like. We have our general company circle. We call that alignment, and we have a bunch of different circles focusing on specific areas, like most companies working with Holacracies will know. I'm here because I have an external speaker role, so you can see that here. Maybe I'm in the way. So my purpose is inspiring the world with the way we work. I hope that I will be able to do that today, that you will feel just a little bit inspired by the way that we have done things. And I really hope that you can take something from this today that you can maybe implement at your own company as well. I hope it helps you. Today's talk will be very practical. I will talk a lot about our hiring process and our onboarding process. And I will just show you basically how we do it and how we've developed this process over the past 3 years. So yeah, I haven't always worked at Springus. Before I worked at Springus, I worked at this traditional corporate hierarchical bureaucratic company. It almost sounds a little bit like a monster now. I worked for a manager, and a manager who always told me what to do. I didn't have my own freedom. I worked in sales, and at one point sales were going down, and I saw all these possible solutions, but I couldn't do anything with them because whenever I had an idea, I would go to my manager and she would shoot me down. I was like, why don't we try this? And she was like, nope, that's not something for you to worry about. I was like, why don't we change this process? And she was like, nope, that's for the managers to decide. So I felt like the red little puppet over there. I think a structure like that can make you feel very small. So I started looking around, and this is basically the manager in the company. I started looking around, and I found Springus. And at Springus, you all know with hiring, it's a little difficult. With Holacracy, you don't really have job titles anymore. So they didn't really have a vacancy with a job title. This was the actual vacancy title. They were looking for an expedition leader for customer sales. And this was the actual picture that was used in the vacancy. What it basically meant is that Springus wanted to explore B2C sales. It was something that they hadn't done before, and they needed someone to figure that out. Hence the expedition leader. That's what I started to do. I was hired as a first sales agent. We call them learning advisors now. And I started figuring it out. I started developing sales processes, and soon enough, I started hiring people to create a team, a sales team. And I still remember this very well. This is something that stuck with me because knowing this traditional structure or this traditional hierarchy, I noticed that I still had this habit of looking for permission and looking for approval from someone, from a manager figure. But with Holacracy, you don't have a manager, so you don't really have that. I would naturally go to Ruben as the founder of Springus and the person I had my job interview with. And whenever I had an idea or a direction I wanted to go in, I would go to him to look for that permission. And I would ask him like, hey, I have this idea. Why don't we go this direction? Why don't we do this? And this was his response. Why are you asking me? Why don't you just do it? And this for me was the first time that I really realized how much Holacracy can mean. It gives you such a great feeling of freedom and a feeling of an organization putting their trust in you, that it's the biggest fuel for intrinsic motivation that I know. I was a big Holacracy fan from that moment on. I've been geeking out about Holacracy since then, and this was 3 years ago. I'm not into sales anymore. Most of my roles that I have now at Springus are related to Holacracy, to onboarding new employees, and also evangelizing about the way that we work. Yeah, so I started this this journey as the expedition leader for customer sales. I started hiring a team, so I've had all these different roles related to hiring and onboarding. But yeah, there were a lot of challenges ahead, and I want to share a little bit about my journey with you. I'm just going to show you how we now do our hiring and onboarding, our process. And I'm going to show you the roles that are involved, and hopefully, yeah, this will be useful for you as well. So let's start with hiring. This is the first role that is basically involved with our hiring process. This was the role that I had as well, the learning advisor hiring role, accountable for recruiting, basically. So finding people who could be suitable for this role. This is an overview of all the roles that are involved in a hiring process. Hiring basically starts with a lead link, because the lead link is a person who is responsible for the resources in his or her circle. So the lead link is the first person who should signal a resource to visit, and the lead link is someone who will request a budget to hire new people. So that's where the budget role comes in. Then once budget is approved and there's an okay from the lead link and from the budget role to go hire new people, the recruitment role starts, scouting for people. The recruitment role, did I have it here? No. So yeah, the recruitment role is a very important one, because it already starts with, how do you write a vacancy? How do you write a vacancy for a job if you don't have job titles? How do you explain to the outside world that doesn't work with Holacracy how we work? That's a challenge. So what we see sometimes is that, I'll come back to the previous slide later. Sometimes we need people, but we need people on multiple roles. So we can't really write a vacancy for one job title. So this is an example of what a vacancy could look like at Springus. We could mention several roles that need that we need someone for, so potential roles that someone could fill. Sometimes we also add of time, so you can expect to spend 30% of your time on the provider sales role. You can expect to spend 10% of your time on your key provider role, just to give someone an idea of what their job could look like. But it's all very flexible, and you also know that if you're working with Holacracy, a lot can change in a short amount of time. I think at one point at Springus, 1/3 of all the employees had started as a learning advisor. So I had I was responsible for hiring a team of people, but it was also the favorite pond to fish from for other circles. So as I was hiring people and recruiting people, we got more and more learning advisors, but they also kept moving on to other roles in the company. And if you've worked with Holacracy for a while, you probably know that problem as well. But that's also the flexibility that Holacracy brings. You can start with one role and move and grow into other roles as well. So yeah, it starts with a vacancy. We've struggled with how we should do this. First, we also on our LinkedIn profiles, we still used job titles just for the outside world to understand what our roles were most like. But after a while, there was a rule that was forbidden. We could not use the word manager anymore in any of our job titles, also not on LinkedIn, because we don't have managers. And we also shouldn't give ourselves that title just for other people to understand what we do. I don't even know what's on my LinkedIn profile. I just think it's a big sum up of roles. But yeah, it's something that you have to work out. And yeah, you have to learn what works for you as well. But I feel like it really helps if you give a sum up of the potential roles that someone could fill. For the recruiting role, we use Recruity, which is a tool for recruitment. And our recruitment has different phases. So where usually organizations do an interview, we usually skip that. We don't ask people over to do an interview. Instead, we do a phone interview, and we screen people through that. But we very soon invite people for a trial day. And a trial day is very important. I think that is the biggest thing that I can give you, like, as advice. Also, when I started at Springers, I did a trial of 2 days, and I sat down, and someone asked me, like, "What do you want to do today?" I had to figure that out on my own. So a trial day gives you the chance to really throw some challenges at someone and see how someone picks it up, see how someone solves problems. And you can see how that person does in the role that he's supposed to be doing when you hire them. So what we did with learning advisors, they just spent a whole day getting in touch with our customers. First, our trial buddy role would explain all the processes that we use, all the programs and systems. But then this person just, like, good luck, have fun, and go call some people, have fun, and do your best. And well, I've already mentioned that Spring is all about learning. So for us, your previous experience is not as important as your ability to learn. I think that's the most important skill that someone can have when they apply at Springest, is an ability to learn. And that's something that we want to test. So we want to just throw challenges at you and see how you solve them, see how you pick them up. If we give you pointers or advice, we want to see if you pick it up or if you just continue the way you were doing already. And I think those are very important signals of whether or not you want to hire someone. So yeah, that's a trial. Yeah, this is the question I was asked on my trial day. I was really thrown in the deep end. There wasn't really a structure for it yet, but it was also because I was doing something completely new and something that no one had done before. So I had to figure out my own role and my own job, basically. We have changed a bit after that. We now sometimes use projects for trials. So if someone has applied for a job and they come by for their trial day, sometimes we have prepared a project for them with tasks that they can pick up. So when someone arrives, we will explain how everything works, but then they just have their own project, so they can just go ahead and do their thing. And I think it's very important when you work with Holacracy that you stimulate that from the start, that someone works on their own, and that you stimulate from the start this self-managing and self-organizing characteristic. You want that in your employees. So it's good to really be clear about that from the start. Yeah, so let's go through all the roles here. First, the lead, link, and the budget recruitment role. The recruitment role scouts for people, does the phone interviews, invites people for a trial. The trial buddy role then guides the trial. Then there's another role involved, which is called happiness. And all these different roles give input to our contracts and salaries role about whether or not they give an okay to hire someone. So our happiness role is accountable for evaluating Springest fit. So when you do a trial day, we will throw challenges at you, see how you do. Also for the trialer to see if they like what they're doing and if it's for them. So it's not only beneficial for us, but also for the person applying. It goes both ways. But then also on your trial day, you often have a talk with our happiness role. And that's all about, like, what is your ambition? What do you want to learn? Why did you? What is the main reason for you to apply here? What is what is drawing you to this company. And I think this is really important to have this check. And I also think it's important for different people to have different parts in this, and not one person evaluating all of this alone. So you have the recruitment role, you have the trial buddy, and you have the happiness role. You also have the lead link role. All four of them give input to our contracts and salaries role, which is probably the next slide. Yeah. And the contract and salaries role is eventually the person, the one and only role who can decide whether or not to hire someone. But this role holder does that with the input from all the roles involved in the hiring process. But still, it's important that there's one role with the decision-making authority on whether or not to hire someone. So there has to be an okay from lead link, budget, recruitment, onboarding buddy, and happiness for someone to be hired. There's a lot of people involved, but everyone has a very clear part in it, which makes it very clear what everyone does. So I would really advise that in a hiring process. That went very quick. That was the hiring part. So contracts and salaries is happy, everybody's happy, you're hired. Then comes the onboarding part, which gives a whole new set of challenges. Because to what degree do you hold someone by the hand, and to what extent do you throw someone in the deep? And it's sometimes hard to find a balance between that. That's what we've tried to do. When I started, there wasn't really an onboarding project or anything. It was a lot of the throwing in the deep end and the swimming. But it has changed a lot since then. I've worked really hard on our hiring and onboarding processes together with my fellow onboarding role. And there are now a lot of roles involved in this. This is just a sum up. I think I even forgot a few. I think a very important advice that I can give is to split up your onboarding from your company, general company onboarding, and your role specific or your circle specific onboarding, because they're basically two very different things. I mean, yes, someone needs to learn how to use all the apps and tools. They need to do all their salary administration stuff. They need to have a key. They need all that stuff. But they also need to know how to use your CRM system. They need to know what your protocol is for making calls. Or there's also very deep role-specific knowledge that's not applicable for everyone that is hired at the company. So that's why we have a general onboarding role, and we have an onboarding buddy. And the onboarding buddy is a role which is circle specific. So we have a smooth operations circle, which holds all our all our hiring and recruitment, or company general roles. So the general onboarding role is in there, but for every role, for every circle, there's basically almost an onboarding buddy role. These are a lot of roles that are involved with training our new employees. So we have a software tools academy role, a first line tech help desk role, and that help people just with getting started and installing all their apps and tools and everything. We have our office manager who has to arrange keys for people, stuff like that, MacBooks, all the things that someone needs to get started. Contracts and salaries needs to do all the salary administration. Then on the right, we also have two important roles for training. We have a Brian Robertson rep role. That is a role who gives our internal Holacracy trainings. We also have a David Allen rep. I don't know if you're familiar with getting things done, G2D, but it's very much integrated in the way we work. So we also have a role who trains our new employees on how to work with that. Our happiness role is involved with training people and explaining people about our company culture. Security officer, well, that's for our ISO purposes and for security reasons that are important. We also have a product process master who explains new people how to do product requests. So how to formulate requests that go to our product teams, because otherwise they go crazy as well. So it's also for their own benefit. And we have a newbie role. So when you're new, you actually have a role for being new. And I will show you that later. Yeah, so let's start with my first lesson and first advice is to make a newbie owner of their own onboarding. And how do you do that? Well, by giving them their newbie role and making them accountable for their own onboarding. So you can actually expect them to do their onboarding project. We've created a very extensive onboarding project. So basically when someone starts, I can welcome them, but I can hand them their project and good luck. Because everything is in here. All the roles that I mentioned have parts of this onboarding as their responsibility. So the tools part is for our first line tech help desk and for our software toolset academy role. The administration part is for the office manager and salary and contracts role. So every role has their own part in onboarding. Which makes it very clear who does what, who's responsible for what. And also for a new person, who do I go to when I have questions? There's always the general onboarding role that new people can go to with their questions. But I think it's very important to divide responsibilities and to make it very clear who to go to for what question. So yeah, this is what our onboarding project looks like. And it really helps people to get started on their own. You do need a few things to make that happen, which is the onboarding buddy that I mentioned. Yeah, so the onboarding buddy, the LA stands for learning advisor here, is accountable for pair working with the learning advisor. So sharing their knowledge and upon the next generation of learning advisors, basically. And I think it's very important that you have one specific person to go to with your role specific questions, and you know who that is. So every new person that starts has their own specific onboarding buddy that they can go to. We always want to stimulate people to figure out things on their own first before they come to a colleague with questions. And that's also part of what I mentioned. So stimulate from the start that we want this autonomy and this self-managing character. You don't want to create something that I call learned helplessness, because if someone asks me a question, it's very easy for me to give a straight answer if I know what the answer is. But my answer will always be, what have you done yourself to figure it out? And I think that's something that you should always promote with new people, especially. Another thing that's really important with new people is that they are also a fresh set of eyes. And I always tell our new people, just because we teach you this is the way that we work, doesn't mean that that's the best way to work. So be critical and look at the way that you work and think of things that can be more efficient. You don't want this to happen. Like, hey, I have a really good idea. Oh, no, thanks, I'm too busy. You never want new people to fully dive into their roles and be too busy to think about why they're doing this the way that they're doing. So we don't want people to just accept, oh, this is what you're teaching me and this is just the way we do it. We never want people to think like that. We always want our people to think of how could it be even better. And that has a lot to do with this basic rule that we have. We want to have zero tolerance for inefficiency. So if something can be better and more efficient, then that should be attention and that should be fuel. And that's basically what this slide is about. Tension is fuel. So whenever something is annoying or bugging or not going as efficient as it could be, it should give you enough tension to do something with it. And that's something that we really want to stimulate. Part of onboarding in any company, what's very important is internal training. So we are a learning platform and we offer learning solutions for companies as well. So that comes in pretty handy. So we have that for ourselves as well. We have a Springest Academy. So all our new people can enroll for all these courses, and your onboarding role can assign you certain courses that are relevant for your role, or courses that everyone should take to become fully onboarded. These are just a few. So yeah, we have face-to-face, we have like group sessions, like group trainings. We have online videos, and we have one-on-one sessions with about GTD, for example. But all of that is booked internally. There's a lot of training going on. How are we with the time, by the way? Are we going good? I don't have a clock. Well, so what I mentioned is attention is fuel, and it's very important that our new people are motivated to do something with it, and that they don't scare away. Because in the beginning, when you start in a company that's fully self-organizing and self-managing, sometimes it takes a bit of guts to feel strong enough to really push for something, and that is something that we really want to stimulate. And that's why we also have this role called an ideas coach. And I was there when Ewout proposed this role, and he mentioned something about if you have an idea and it's shut down, it's proven that you're much less likely to come with an idea again. So if you have a tension and you want to try to solve it, but nothing happens or it's shut down, then you're less likely to try and solve a tension again. Whereas if you have an idea and it's picked up and something is done with it, you're much more motivated to do it again. So that's what we want to keep stimulating in our employees right from the start. So that's where this role is for, to help Springeteers process their ideas into action, and also to give feedback when it doesn't work. Yeah, that's basically what I have for hiring and onboarding. To sum it up with some advices, I would really urge everyone to start doing trials, start trying it out, start inviting applicants to your office, invite them to come work at your office for a day. Throw some challenges at them, see how they do, see how they solve their problems, see how they fit in the role. And it's also a good way for them to see if the role is suited for them, if they like it. We always say that a trial is not just a formality. I think less than 50% of people who do a trial are actually hired. So it's not like, oh, you're already hired, but do a trial anyway. No, it's really important for our hiring process. And it's really our way of evaluating how suited someone is for the role that they're applying for. So that's a big one. Really start doing trials. I also really liked it when I applied, because I applied for something that didn't exist yet. So how do I know that it's for me? I didn't. So this trial day really helped me to feel the vibe of the company and to see what is possible. And for me, that gave me even more motivation to start in this role. Yeah. What really helped our onboarding and hiring process is to have multiple roles involved who all have their own specific part to focus on. So what I said, in hiring, you don't want one person to have all of the responsibility. You want responsibility to be divided over people. And I also think it's good to have different people's opinions before you decide to hire someone. We often also have people who have acquaintances or people they know who apply, for example. You want to have multiple people evaluating someone before you make a decision to hire them, because they need to have a Springers fit, they need to have a team fit and a role fit. And I think it's important to have different people involved in that process to really evaluate whether someone is right for the company or not. And then, yeah, that's basically also in Springer's culture, test somebody's ability to learn and adapt. I think it's really important that someone who will start working with Holacracy, that they have very good skills in adaptability. So if you throw a challenge at them, that they try to solve it on their own first. And I think it's very important to stimulate that from the start. Yeah, so that's what I have for hiring. For onboarding, the same, stimulate self-reliance and autonomy from the start. It's very important. In onboarding, people will have a lot of questions. And me and my onboarding role, I was dead tired. It cost me so much time for people to be onboarded because they kept coming with questions and questions and questions. At one point, I would just tell them like, okay, have you looked in the internal help desk? That was my response to any question. And that's also in this list. For onboarding to be very smooth and successful, and for you to spend less hours answering questions, it's very important to create a very extensive internal help desk. So the answer to any question someone might have should be documented somewhere. And if it's not in there, then there should be a role that they can address it to. Yeah, I'm a big fan of splitting onboarding from company general onboarding and role-specific onboarding, because they're basically two very different things. And it's important to make a newbie owner of their own onboarding, and that also helps with the first point to feed that autonomy. Here is your onboarding project. Good luck with it. Go manage yourself. I think those are the biggest advices that I can give you today from our experience. Yeah, so that's it. I hope this is right. Google translated it. Yeah, so that's what I have for you. And I'm very curious about your questions. So thank you.
So guys, do you have any questions to the presentation? I'm sure you have, yeah.
How long the onboarding process lasts in the Spring Guest?
Ooh, yeah, that depends a bit. Usually we want people to be onboarded within maybe a month, maybe 2 months. It depends also on the variety of roles that they have. Something I could add is that what we've tried for a while is to have people, when they start in their first week, they do nothing but Spring's general onboarding. So they are not even allowed to work in the role that they are supposed to do. The only focus is Springer's general onboarding. So they will have their Holacracy trainings, their GTD trainings. We work with Asana. That's the app that we use for basically everything that we do. They will have their Asana trainings. So Springer's general onboarding, the basic skills before doing anything else. So yeah, so basically the Springer's general onboarding. If that's their only focus, it would be possible within a week, and then they would start their role-specific onboarding. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think we have one question from the remote audience.
Ooh.
We have a question from Damian. Is your process similar for technical roles? I mean, software devs.
Basically, yes. We still have like for onboarding or for hiring. Oops.
It's all right.
So yeah, for hiring, it's basically the same. They also have a recruitment role within the product circle that does the recruiting for that circle. And then with the hiring, it's the same. There are multiple roles involved that give input to the contracts and salaries role. For onboarding, it's circle specific onboarding. So they will have their own onboarding project for circle specific onboarding, and they will have their own onboarding buddy in the product circle that is responsible for that. But basically the basis is the same. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Do we have any more questions, guys? Okay, in there. Just give me a second.
I would like to ask whether the same rules apply for the senior people, like senior developers, QAs, senior HR specialists, and so on. Because I would like to if it's possible that a senior person comes to the company and he has great both hard and soft skills. And is it possible to onboard him like during one day, just to explain him all his responsibilities and so on? Because this person already knows almost all technologies which are used in the company. he knows very good Scrum and so on?
Yeah, let me see if I get the question right. If onboarding would be possible in a day if somebody already has all the technical knowledge and skills, I don't think onboarding is ever possible in a day because you're still your own company with your own culture and your own way of working. So even for technical roles and product-related roles, it would be very important that someone also understands the way that our product works. So also the way our features are built and also what is important for our company. So I think that takes more onboarding as well. So they will still need to learn how to use how to work according with Holacracy. They will still need to learn how to work with according to GTD rules that we use. So onboarding is a lot more than just the technical knowledge that you need for your specific role, I think. Sure, it will go a whole lot of smoother if somebody can skip a lot of things because they already know. But within a day, I don't think that's possible now.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, there's a mic in the front. Yeah.
It should be on. So I love the purpose behind the onboarding. However, I have a question about people who went through the trial day and the onboarding period. And do you had anyone who decided to quit? Who decided like, it's not for me, it's too demanding?
Who decided to quit specifically because of Holacracy, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah. We've only had one person in the past that had quit specifically because he didn't want to work with Holacracy anymore. But this was someone who had worked for the company for many years already. He was very much like a very people person, people manager. And Holacracy is only about the work. So it can be very direct and harsh sometimes. So he quit Springest. But the fun thing is he started his own company. And guess what? He started working with Holacracy again. So I think, yeah, even if it doesn't work for you I mean, I can think why people think like, oh, I don't like it anymore. But if you try the traditional hierarchical manager structure again, I mean, once you've moved away from that, it's very hard to get back into that, I think. And that's something that I feel for myself as well. Now that I know how it can also be, I don't want to go back to a traditional hierarchical structure. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I have thank you for a very good presentation and sharing very useful information. But I have one question. For example, you have a new employee and he has such idea to shorten the onboarding process to 1 day, like this colleague. And what happened next? So what would be the next steps to make it, for example, happen?
He should have a very good tension to start with. I don't think it's possible because someone then should be able to complete all the tasks within a day because you have your newbie role, so you're accountable to finish your onboarding project. I did see the request pop by from other colleagues like, hey, I want to shorten the onboarding, exactly what you say. But that request goes to the onboarding role. And the onboarding role is the one who creates these onboarding projects and who holds the overview of like the whole onboarding process. So if someone would feel onboarding takes too long, then that tension should be dropped with a role responsible for that process. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Okay, so I've got the question. You said that you are always looking for something that is more efficient during onboarding process as well. You are leaving some space for people to look for another ways to do something. So maybe I will ask about the major changes that you do during the onboarding, like how you change onboarding process, or something that you changed and after you have to go back because it was not that efficient that you thought at the beginning. Do you got any examples of it, or yeah?
With onboarding specifically,
yeah.
What I've started to do, because what I mentioned, onboarding took a lot of time because everyone kept asking me questions. So what I started to do is do weekly onboarding Q&As. So if your question is not super uber urgent, and if it's not like I cannot continue my work at all until you answer this question, then it can wait until the end of the week. And at the end of the week, we'll go through all of your questions at the same time. And in those onboarding Q&As, I also actively ask for feedback, like, hey, what do you have things that you wish you would already know in your first week, but that you learned in your third week, but stuff like that. I would ask feedback about that. And that's also based on that, we changed the onboarding a lot. Because first, it was a lot more throwing in the deep end and leaving someone alone with their onboarding. Onboarding took a lot of time because we had tasks for people to go through all the articles in the internal help desk. Not all of them, but a lot of them. So I got the feedback, wow, it feels like I'm only reading for an entire week. I'm getting square eyes. I'm getting a headache. And so I got that feedback. So I took all of that out. So it's a continuous process that we keep changing based on the feedback that we get from our newbies. But I also get feedback from colleagues like, hey, I'm still getting requests from someone who are that are not formulated in the right way, that are not right according to our GTD rules. Can you please make sure that people learn that sooner in onboarding so that doesn't happen anymore? So I get requests from both sides. From colleagues who want knowledge to be available earlier in the onboarding process, but also from onboardees, so the newbies, who give me feedback on their experience. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
We have a few more questions from our live chat. The first one from Vera.
Hi, Vera.
Can you describe a bit the coach role and happiness role, and how often they interact with newbie during onboarding process?
During the onboarding process, the happiness role is mainly involved because the happiness role gives a training or a workshop about our culture, explaining our culture and the way we work. Our happiness role is involved with everyone in the company, not only during onboarding. Every quarter, the happiness role has talks with everyone in the company to check how happy are you? What is your ambition? What are your learning goals? Where do you want to go? What can we do to help you? What can we do to make you even happier here? That's what the happiness role is for, to monitor Springers Fit and general happiness of everyone. Next to that, we also use Tiny Pulse, another app. And every month we're asked the question, how happy are you at work and why? Everyone answers that anonymously, but the happiness role goes through the answers, takes the feedback, and is the person responsible for acting or reacting upon that. Yeah, so that's basically what the happiness role is most about. I hope that answers your question, Vera.
Yep.
There's a mic.
I'd like to ask from your experience, for someone who never worked in the Holacracy and it is, for example, the previous corporate employee, someone who worked in that hierarchy, what is the biggest obstacle that usually he needs to get through to fit into the Holacracy structure?
I think the longer you have worked in a corporate hierarchical structure, the harder it is to unlearn certain habits. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. That's also what I mentioned in the beginning, that when I started at Springest, I was naturally looking for this manager figure to ask for permission and to ask for approval for things. And I think that's that's a very important thing that you need to unlearn when you start in a holacratic company. But it's also important for the company where you start, for them to create new habits. So also, if you start working with Holacracy with your company, it's also important for the former manager roles. They will still get the questions. People will still automatically maybe look for them for approval. So if someone then comes to you as previous manager with questions, it's also important that you say like, hey, it's not my authority to make this decision. This is your authority. This is your decision. You don't need my approval. So it's very easy for someone, if someone asks you a question or asks you for your approval, to fall back into your old managery role. But it's very important that you also break through that habit, and that you also respond in the right way. Yeah. And I think also for me, what I found a challenge in the beginning, the meetings. At first, I thought, what the hell is happening? Because we had really strict facilitators who are very strict on when you can and cannot speak. I don't know if you've had the technical meetings already or if you've seen one. We have one online, so you can check it out there as well. But yeah, I felt like I took it personal, because I felt like somebody was telling me to shut up, but it's just the process. I needed to learn the process. And that's something in Holacracy that you also need to learn, that it's about the work. It's not about you personally. You are only addressed in your role. And I think that's a very important lesson. And it takes some time to get used to that, I think. Yeah. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, guys, I think we're running low on time. Okay,
Just one more question.
Okay, sorry.
He already has a mic.
Yeah, it's a promise. Okay, so
One
it's
more.
double promise right now. But I got like, let's say maybe 2 questions, one little, second one a little bit bigger.
Go for it.
Let's say, for what kind of company would you recommend using Holacracy? I mean, how big, for instance? How big is your company, and what is the limitation? Is it 100 people, 800 people, more, less than this?
That's a hard question to answer, because.
Or is it any limitations? I mean,
not necessarily. I think it's easier to implement with less people, because you will just have less people involved, and you can start with a few people, with one circle, maybe with a few roles. It's maybe that's easier. I don't know. But if you're a bigger organization, you might feel the need more to implement something like that, and to get rid of the traditional hierarchical structure, so it can have a bigger impact. And I don't think there's a limit to it. I mean, Zappos is, I think, still the biggest organization that you can take as an example. And I think they have like more than over 1,000 employees. But the thing is, when you implement it, you have to go all in. And that's an important thing. It's not like a test. It's not something you're going to try out. You need everyone on board. And for Zappos, that meant, if I have the numbers correct, that about 13% of their people left. Tony Xi told them, like, hey, this is now the way that we're going to work. And we want everybody to be aboard. And if you're not, then there's the door. And yeah, you'll get like an exit package. But he wanted everyone that stayed at the company to really go for it, like, and embrace this new way of working. And I think that's important.
Okay, as I said, the second question would be, because you mentioned you had some kind of, at the beginning, name of the role, a learning advisor, with some kind of roles to fit in or some kind of activities to do. But then you said that you don't have any kind of name for your position at this point. But just to explain it to a person which, let's say, a corporate background, for instance, isn't that just doing something like, for instance, you've been a manager, what do you do now? I can't tell that I'm a manager. I'm managing something. Isn't that just doing the same thing, but with extra steps? I mean, by that extra, freedom to decide what to do.
But I'm not managing something, because that's in Holacracy we don't manage anything.
But yeah, but
no, I would.
You manage something, some kind, maybe not manage. You got some kind of a role which you take. So in a way, what do you do with the role? You manage your activities. Okay, not to say that you're a manager of something, but you manage some activities. So isn't, I'm trying to understand it from this corporate,
from the outsider point of view.
I read a little bit about this, and you're like, yeah, that's cool. maybe that could work, but how to explain it, basically.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing. It's tough to explain, and it's tough to express to the outside world that doesn't work with Holacracy. What I've also learned, and what I've seen other people do as well, is if people ask you what you do, don't tell them a job title. Don't say I am this, but tell them the purpose of your role. Like, what is the thing that you, what do you do it for? Or what is the biggest purpose of what you do?
Because my basic assumption is that, you know, it's basically job connected only, as you said before.
What do you mean job connected?
I mean job connected that, well, you're not the name of your position, but you know, in Holacracy you have to do something, and that's the general purpose. As you said, you have facilitators which will just simply tell you that, you know, shut up, like when you're saying something during a meeting, and that's all. That's what I mean.
We don't have people who are only a facilitator. It's hard to
No,
explain what I do.
I'm taking this as an example, as you said.
The thing is that, yes, some people have one role. Then it's, I think, easier to explain what you do. But I've had as many as 20 roles, I think. And then, I mean, I've done learning advice, but I also did office design. So when we moved offices, I designed the whole place. That's so opposite of each other. And I also give internal trainings. I do onboarding and I give talks. I mean, it's not something that I can put into one job description. And I don't need to. What I would mostly maybe take from it is, what is the role that you spend most time on, or the role that you give most energy, that you energize the most, and maybe point that out as your main job. Yeah.
Main task, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you guys. I think now's the time for a short break. If you have more questions, I think you can ask them to Annie during the break.
I'll be around.
Okay, cool. We will also try. Okay, so yeah, maybe a few more questions.
Okay, so the last one.
Last one.
How do you check a Springest fit?
Sorry, how do you?
Check Springest fit.
Spring is fit. We have certain attributes or personality, not personality, but how to explain this? We have certain attributes that we value in our Springeteers. We call it nerd speed. We call it availability to learn, being proactive, being able to work on your own. And those are all qualities that we try to look for in people. So evaluating Springest fit is a lot about asking questions and also seeing what somebody throws back at you. Also giving somebody a challenge and seeing how they pick it up. So we do that a lot during the trial day. We see how someone interacts in the company. Is someone being assertive? Is someone actively looking for improvements, or is someone very eager to learn and very eager to be better? I think that's something that comes across very clearly on a trial day, and that you can see very clearly in the way that somebody picks up new tasks. Yeah, so I think that's, again, the trial. People start doing trials. Yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Okay, any more questions by any chance? So, okay, so right now there's going to be a short break. Yeah, just move on stage. You can propose topics for your for the discussion panel on the whiteboard there. So during the break, just approach the board and write your topic on the board, and then after there's going to be a few topics, just put a dot next to your favorite topic, so that the more dots, the more popular the topic, and then we're going to be talking about them during the discussion panel. Also, the people from the live stream, you can propose your topics in the chat and then upvote the topics, so that after the break we'll count them, and 3 of the most popular topics will be talked during the panel. And yeah, basically enjoy the break. There's going to be a 30-minute break. Head over to the coffee area and enjoy it, and see you in 30 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, guys. Hope you enjoyed the break. Thank you very much for being with us again. Okay, so the questions that you voted are, excuse me. Whoa, sorry. The first question is, particular project when everything is not going well, if there is no hierarchy, who settles those who made mistakes? Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is, what about a responsibility for a particular project when everything is not going well? If there is no hierarchy, who settles those who make mistakes? Okay. Question number 2 is, your companies, what do you value? Yeah, what do you value? Okay, so that's the second question. Third question is, to what extent people are involved in company strategy, formulating and planning companies' next 1, 3 to 5 years and direction? Okay, so these are the 3 questions that will be discussed. And now let me introduce the panelists. Our first panelist is, of course, Anna Ninke from Springers. Welcome on stage. Oh, yeah, you can clap. All right. Our second panelist is Mr. Marek Bzoek, who's a tail coach and a founder of EcoCoach. Our third panelist is Ms. Anna Zarudzka. Yes, the lead link of growth at Chile. Come on. And our fourth panelist is Patricia Valla, who's our Holacracy adoption lead at Exolve. And the panel will be facilitated by Carolina Kawaji. Please welcome on stage. And from this point, Carolina will take over. Thank you.
No? Okay, no? Okay, great. Thank you so much for voting and posting your questions. So just to remind everyone, the first question was, sorry. What about responsibility for a particular project when everything is not going well? If there is no hierarchy, who settles those who made mistakes? Anne, would you like to start?
Is it working? Yeah, it's working. How to settle those who make mistakes. That sounds almost so harsh. Like, here's the whip. Who whips them when they make mistakes? Now, I think every project needs one owner. So that's also how it works with us in our tactical meetings. There's one person responsible for giving updates about a specific project. If things are not going well, that person might be asked to give clarification. And if there are more roles involved in the project, then that person is responsible for relaying that feedback to the people involved in the project. So I do think every project has one owner, so it's still very clear who the responsibility lies with. I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah.
Cool. Anna, so who settles those who made mistakes in the end?
You are laughing because we cooperate together in one team. I would ask the question about that moment in which we know who made mistakes. What happened? What is happening? I really don't know. That's why I don't even see any reason to find the person who made mistakes. We cooperate in a team, and of course, everything is transparent. To be honest, when you sit in front of your 10 colleagues and you are saying, it's not working, I can't do it, it's the worst thing you can do for yourself. It's enough. Nothing more is needed. Anything more would be a punishment. And when I imagine a kid, when parents believe that the clap or anything connected with that is working, it's quite old school thinking, isn't it?
Would you like to add something to it?
Yeah, because I just thought it's also a little bit what is the culture like in your company? Because I hope people fail a lot. fail fast, fail often, right? Make mistakes, learn from them. And I think at Springus, we try to be very open about that. We try to learn from mistakes. And whenever someone starts a project that cannot be finished, or that tried something that didn't work, they will be asked to share something about it, or sometimes they don't even need to be asked. They will share about their experience. Like, I've tried this and it didn't work. And these are the lessons that we've learned from it. And this is what we will do different next time. So I think it's good to make mistakes. And I think it's very, very important to stimulate people to share them so that we can all learn from it. And I think that's very important with Holacracy, because you cannot hide behind anyone. You cannot hide behind a manager. Everything is transparent and in your face, and it can be very confrontational. So it's very important that you create a culture that embraces that and that allows people to make mistakes, and that it's completely okay. I think that's very important.
Inspect and adapt. That's what Scrum says. We are also learning from our mistakes after each part of project, making product or something like this. We have retrospective. Also in Holacracy, we didn't skip this part to check what could be done better and what we can do in future to make it better, or to learn from what we just did.
Marek, would you like to add?
Yeah, I am not a Holacracy practitioner, but it is the same with the companies which I work in, also with EcoCoach. That clear responsibilities. It is very important, and openness for speaking about mistakes and learning from them. It is the most important.
Absolutely. Patricia, would you like to also add something about how product teams are dealing in such situations? Because from perspective of Scrum Master, you must have quite a lot of experiences when something went wrong.
Actually, I would say it's a little bit different because in Holacracy, you have one owner of each topic. And this owner, of course, can ask for help for a team or something like this, but you have only one person responsible. But in product team, in Scrum teams, you have the whole team responsible for the success of the product. And they are all cooperating with doing this product, with inspecting, adapting, etc. So if there is a moment when someone fails, you have always a lot of other developers, Scrum Master, product owner, etc. To help you with this. To set up some kind of process if needed. You can also ask organization for help, another senior developer from other team to check what you just did, to help you with ideas, etc.
Thank you. Any questions from the public regarding what we've just said? No? Okay, so I guess we can move on to the next question. To what extent people are involved in company strategy, formulating and planning companies' next 1, 3, 5 years in terms of direction?
I would say something about I love to compare the organization working in Holacracy to the city. City, yeah, like Gliwice, or Warsaw, or New York. You have the law, it's the law from the country. You have some rules, you have the governance, anyhow, like the city governance, the public governance. But there is nobody saying you how to pass the street, for example. You have the lights, red, green, and you decide what to do. You can pass on red. It's your choice. The same thing is with this kind of things like strategy or vision of the company. there is a circle responsible for that with the roles responsible for that. This is not anyhow the organization in the chaos without anybody responsible for the direction.
No?
But you can read about it in many articles. Journalists love that.
I'm just joking.
It's like, yeah, we are the team running everywhere at the same time. Not. There is direction, and this direction is built by people with the context. For example, it can be a board. We have a board, we have owners, we have many people responsible for that. So it exists, but it's not connected with one person like a feeder. It's the team with the roles. And like in the city, this is just the law, just the direction, just the vision and mission. Other things like passing the street is not anyhow responsible for that of this circle, for example.
Yeah, so within Holacracy, it's very clear who the lead link role is accountable for setting the strategy of the circle. So for us, we set strategy, we use OKRs, objectives and key results. I won't get into that very deep, but it first starts with the lead link of our general company circle, setting the OKR for, well, the general company circle where all other circles fall in. So first the strategy is set, you could say, on the top level, the overarching circle. Following that, all the sub-circles, their lead links start formulating OKRs and strategy for their circles. And all of those OKRs will help reach the OKRs of the alignment circle. So yeah, basically who is involved, that's the question. For us, basically with Holacracy rules, there's only one person who has the decision-making authority on strategy, and that's the lead link role. For us, we do in our general company circle have a role called a strategy advisor, but those are only 3 people, and those 3 people help the lead link of our general company circle with the strategy of the overall company. From there on, the other lead links, they're on their own, you know. They're solely responsible for setting the strategy and the OKRs. What does happen a lot is that they will have meetings with their circle and ask for input, because how can you set a strategy? How do you know where the bar is if you're not the one who is doing the like executing the work? So input has to be gathered from the circle as well. But in the end, it's only the lead link who's responsible for setting the strategy. Yep.
Actually, I would add one more thing, because for some of circles we have the strategist role, because lead link can also delegate some of their accountabilities to another role, and it's totally allowed within the Holacracy. So for some circles, we have the strategist role who set the strategy for the entire circle.
Also, in some of the circles, there are roles who have in their accountabilities strategy for a particular field, like, for example, social media. And they'll sort of very narrowly specialize in a tiny little part of what we do. And possibly that's the solution as well. Marek, what's your experience in IGUS?
So maybe not with IGUS, but finishing with IGUS and starting EcoCoach, we were using, and I'm also using this with clients, this method explained in the reinventing organization with the empty chair, for the finding vision of the company. And also strategy. So we put in the chair the company, and each person who sits on this chair is developing the own strategy for the company, and it is a very interesting, very deep process when company is speaking with their own language, and I feel that it is give a lot of the interesting motivation from the people from the inside. And I am wondering how it is with Holacracy, that it is really the interesting motivation of each person from the company. It is fulfilled with this strategic team, and I wonder if it is for each person. For example, someone wants to change the strategy, and how you deal with this. For example, one person from the development team, for example, he want to change the strategy, and I wonder how it is solved.
Yeah, I've been in this situation before where I was in a circle and key results that we were working towards, but I didn't feel like they reflected or that they were motivating enough, or they were they weren't in our reach enough, or so we had a KR of reaching a certain conversion rate, for example, for learning advisors, but that's a percentage. It's not something that is very tangible. So what I did in this situation is that I went to the lead link, who is accountable for setting this strategy, and I suggested I've named my tension. Like, I have a tension with this because because it's not stimulating, it's not motivating, it's not something tangible enough that we can work towards. A percentage is, well, you don't see your own direct effect on it as much. So I requested him to change the key results that we were working towards to something more tangible, to amount of calls that we did, to amount of bookings that we did, so that every learning advisor had a very clear idea of what their own contribution to the OKR was. And I requested it, and he changed it. So I think it's important that if you want strategy to change within Holacracy, it's important that everything comes from a very valid tension, so that you know how to formulate what is the problem, why isn't it working for you, and then possibly you don't even have to offer a better solution. You don't even have to come with a solution, just drop the tension with the person responsible for fixing it, for changing it. Yeah.
I would add two things. One, it's all about purpose of the organization, of the circle, of the role, etc. So we are following the purpose, then the strategy, or strategy makes the purpose of the role, circle, etc. It's everything is connected. And another thing is, you have idea, and there is one question: do you see any reason why this idea can cause us harm or move us backward? So if there is no reason why this can cause us harm, we can follow with this. And usually the lead link thinks this way, and he asks himself or herself, okay, is it safe enough to try with the new idea, the new strategy? And if yes, we can go with it.
Yes, look good. Thank you.
Okay.